Okay guys, so here's a story for today. Now, that bevel gearbox, you see the 3 bolt holes there on each plate there, gets bolted in between these 2 plates. Taking these plates out of here means complete disassembly just about of this rear end. And I think that this metal plate is plenty heavy enough that if I cut a little notch here to slip the shafts by, I believe that this will not hurt a thing, because there's nothing being fastened in here that has to do with the gearbox. It's all in the back here. So these 3 bolts on each side, and I mean 3 of them for this little garden tractor, seems to be an overkill. Same thing with this plate. This looks like almost 1/4 inch plate, I would say. So I'm considering cutting this on both sides so I can set this bevel gearbox in, or if not both sides, maybe one side. You know, I could slip it in one way and then put it down in, and I'll show you what I'm talking about here. So, you know, here's the gearbox. So if you imagine the shaft in here, this gearbox goes in like this. So if you imagine the shaft in here, there's no way to get this in there when the gearbox is together. And I would really rather have the gearbox together and be able to take it out as a unit rather than having to take the entire tractor end here apart. I don't think it was, I think that cutting that would be okay. I don't see it as being a big issue. So that's what I'm going to do. Because there's a bracket on this side, I'm going to put the gearbox together with the whole shaft in it. And then I'm going to cut one side here, just enough to slip the axle, or not the axle, but the shaft in here. I'm going to try and push it into that one and then slip it down to this one. If that doesn't work, I'll cut them both. I just think this is foolish, having to tear this whole thing apart just to get this out of here. And I don't mind modifying it. So we'll see what happens. So then here's the other thing. Now this is the shaft that goes through that box, the bevel gearbox. Now right now I've shined this thing up with some 600 grit sandpaper where this gear fits on here. Now the gear needs to go up to this line. That's where the gear actually has to go, and it's giving me, you know, it's here nice, but it's not wanting to go the rest of the way. Now I had a dial indicator on the top of this shaft. This the lathe is very accurate. I think it's off 1/10,000ths. So, you know, you multiply that out, you could calculate what this would be off. But this seems to be bent, this shaft, just ever so slightly. So I'm not going to try and straighten it because there's no way I would be able to do that. I don't have what I need for that. But I would like to get this gear to go up there. Now at this point, the bearing that goes on here actually rides somewhere just a little bit past that. Now you want the bearing to be tight so that the balls in the bearing are what support it. You don't want the shaft to be spinning. So I think I'm okay with that. And like I say, this thing here, this gear, goes up there pretty far, and you can still move it. But I noticed there's a little scratch on the shaft, so I think that the inside of this thing is scratching it a little bit. So it might be where the keyway is or something. I'm considering reaming the inside of this out just a little bit, enough to shine it up, because there is a keyway in it. It won't turn. It has to come all the way up to here. So I'm thinking about shining this up a little bit now on the inside. Maybe do a little bit more here yet, just so I can get this gear on without a lot of trouble. Because being in the gearbox, if I have to put the gearbox together from, you know, with the gearbox bolted in and not the shaft in, that's a lot of trouble trying to get that into there, especially line everything up. So I'm going to work on shining the shaft up a little bit better, see if I can't get this gear all the way up to where it's supposed to be by hand rather than having to press it. Hey guys, so I want to hone this gear out a little bit. I just want to make it slide over that shaft easier, and it seems like there's some burrs in there somewhere. I was going to try this little brake cylinder hone, wheel cylinder, but it doesn't fit in there. So I'm going to try this piece of dowel with some paper or some sandpaper on it, see if I can't knock the burrs off of this thing. Now I don't need much off of this, so I'm not looking to, I mean I could put it in the lathe and reach in there with a tool to take some down, but I don't want to take it down that much. I just want it deburred so it fits on the shaft. That's all I'm looking for. You can see that shining that up in there pretty nice. Let me continue with that. This isn't going to change the shape of this or make it out of round or anything else. There's not enough power to do that. There's not enough grit to do that. This is just shining it up. That's all it's doing. Yeah, it's taking off some stuff, but what it's taken off there is very minor. Alright, I'm going to try this on the shaft. Okay guys, so this came out pretty nice and shiny in there, all cleaned up. And cleaning that up gave me just what I needed to be able to, by hand, push that thing up to the keyway there. So that's what I needed, and that's what I wanted. I don't know if you saw that. Where's that key? So I need it up to here, and you can see I can push it by hand up to there. So that's not going to be that hard for me to put on. Okay, that's another stage done. Okay guys, so let me just show you this. Now, inside this gear here, or inside this bevel box, this gear has to go inside there to put the shaft through it, because the gear won't fit through this hole up here. Okay, it's too big to come through the hole. So you have to put the gear inside the gearbox, press the shaft onto the gear in the box, and now you have to press the bearings into this. And this is why I don't want to have to do it inside, you know, all this pressing over there where the frame is. And this is why I'm either going to have to take that frame apart or I'm going to cut it. And I'm pretty sure I'm going to cut it. So anyway, there's a ring around the shaft right up here that seats that stops the bearing or the gear from going too far. And then behind that is this bearing going to get pushed in. And then there's a spacer and a seal that goes in there yet. So let me push this bearing in, and we'll go from there once. Alright, so we're going to use this tubing as a tool to press this bearing in. And I'm going to tell you now that I'm really glad that I shined this up enough to just make the bearing, you know, snug on the shaft, because if that would have been a hard push, I'm afraid that these gears where they mesh, I would have given some grief there. So this should work out pretty good. Everything appears to be loose at this point. Now there's a flat spot on this gearbox that I'm just going to hold this at. move you back a little bit. Right now, I'm pushing that bearing onto there, and I can see that this shaft is straightening up in there. So far there, so good. Now the problem with this is that I still need the bearing to go down further, so I need to use something else in here to push it down. So let me just see what I can grab here. I think that's going to be too long. No, it'll be just enough, I guess. Yeah, but that doesn't fit the bearing very well. Alright, I gotta come up with something to push that bearing down in there with. That's smaller. This is why you need to keep all kinds of metal around, so you have things that you can do stuff with. Okay, so I have a spacer in here that is actually the original spacer that came with the original parts. What it is it's the bearing goes into the case first, then there's a spacer, then there's an oil seal. So I'm using that spacer right now because it's bigger than the hole, or smaller than what the hole is, but just right for the bearing, to push that down in here. Now you can see the gears moving away a little bit there. I'm going to have to make sure that that gets put where it's supposed to be. Well, from what I can see there, that should be pretty nice the way that's all put together. There's not a real easy way to check the lash here. What they do is they put spacers on this side, and since this is so small to work with, I'm just going to put the original spacers in there because I'm using the original shaft, I'm using the original gears. The only difference here is that the bearings would, you know, maybe push the shaft one way or another, but you're talking about a very small amount. So at this point, it looks like, you know, I have no movement there, which I would like to have some, but apparently this doesn't need any. Alright, so now I need a spacer in here and then an oil seal. And I'm not even sure about that because this spacer, I pushed that down all the way. Although the oil seal goes around the spacer. Yeah, okay, that should work. Alright, I'll show you that oil seal and spacer that I'm talking about here. This thing is like a jigsaw puzzle. Okay, so what I have here is this is the oil seal, alright, which you can see, and then this is the spacer. So the spacer actually fits inside the oil seal. That'll go over that shaft and then get pushed into this. The spacer is there because there's another piece that goes over top of this, and I think that spacer's in there to ride against the bearing. I'm not sure, but either way, this is how this thing goes, and I'm gonna have to put it in there. So we should be able to just push against this oil seal without any problems here. Yeah, so we're alright there. It's turning pretty good without any headaches. Now inside this goes another spacer. I'm not sure why they didn't make this shaft bigger except for all the problems of trying to get the gear on. So we got the seal in there now. And that seal, by the way, that green stuff that's on there is a little bit of like a, it's some type of a sealant. It's not loose, but it's pliable, I should say. And it actually looks like it has grit in it to hold it. So that's going to stay there. Like I say, there's a spacer that goes in against the oil seal. Now I want to remember to oil that all up before I put that spacer in there. But let me just get you over this way a little bit. Now you can see there, I'm barely turning that. I mean, I'm not putting much pressure on it, and it's turning good, and it feels very smooth. That's the main thing when it comes to bearings. It feels smooth. So we should be alright with this. You can see there's, I don't know if you can hear that, very little bit of movement in there, which would be, you know, the lash, I guess. There's no way for me to measure that at the moment. Well, I guess I could measure it if I put a dial caliper on here. I could measure the movement. Maybe I'll check that out. But I want to get this bearing on this side now. Okay, so that's all together. And you see what I'm saying about putting this between those two ears on the frame. If you put this in there, all of this pressing would have to be done with hand tools somehow on the, while it's hanging in midair over there. So I don't really like that. I'm going to put it together and I'm going to cut that frame. If I have to put some kind of bracing in there, I will, but I don't think I'll even have to do that. Okay, so on to the seals and bearing on this side. Okay guys, so this is the needle bearing here, and I'm going to push it in. Now I don't have anything long enough or the right diameter to act as a good tool to push that, so I'm going to work off the side of this heavy tube that I have here and hope that that pushes that down. I think it will. I'll just go a little bit on each side and see how it works. Looks like it's going up pretty good. Yeah. So all I need to do is get it down there far enough that I can get the oil seal in. Boy, that's, you really got to have a bunch of different sized pipe here. This pipe's no good. I need something big enough to slide over that shaft that I can push down on. So let me see what I can dig up here. Okay guys, so here's what I'm going to do here. I need to be able to push the bearing that's right here, even with this shoulder of this case, down in there. Okay, and I really don't have any pipe to do that with or anything. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take an old bearing. I'm going to put that over top of that. I'm going to take the spacer that goes on the opposite side that fits this shaft. I'm going to put that down over there. And finally, I'm going to use a piece of PVC pipe, because I have nothing else to work with here. This is all I got. So this is going to have to do this. Now, it's not that hard to pressure that I need, so I don't think the PVC pipe's going to be a problem. But we'll see. Now there goes the needle bearing, so it's going down. It looks like it could go down a little bit more in there yet. If you look in there, you can see that the bearing looks like it's a little bit above there. I'm going to try and look from the other side and see what I got there. Yeah, that can go in there, yeah. Or no, wait a second. I can barely see that thing. I don't know if it can go in there or not. I gotta get a flashlight. Okay guys, so we have two things that we have to modify. Because we drilled the bolt hole bigger on the bottom left, I had to punch this hole slightly bigger to accommodate a 5/16 bolt. Okay, that's one thing. And now we need to drill a hole in this plate that'll cover. So this is a one step above 5/16. What do I got here? 21/64, I believe it is. So I'm going to drill it. That's not good. Ought to be holding it with something. Okay, that'll be good. Okay guys, so I'm old school, and this is what we're putting on here. We'll put some Permatex on this. The gasket doesn't have anything on it. I think my Permatex is getting a little old. Okay, there's no pressure or nothing in here, so this is not going to be a big deal here. Now this is the hole I punched out, that's the hole I drilled. Now, I want to get some bolts started. I don't want that to tighten up on me there without getting some bolts in it. So I'm going to put some gasket shellac on top of that then. Come on. I don't think it matters whether you put it on this or the plate. The thing is that gasket's pretty pliable, so it probably will seal without any, but again, I'm from the old school. We don't trust nothing. Okay. Well, that gasket looked like it was a little not exactly perfect as far as the bolt holes go, but it should still work. You don't want to tighten them up until you get the gasket all, or the screws all the way in there. I'm just using the end of a file to get that stuff started. Or to get the bolt started. Oop. Now these are only 1/4 inch bolts, so you don't really want to go crazy tightening these up. And I'm going to tighten them from the bottom up because there's fluids at the bottom. And my theory is the bottom, if you tighten the bottom real tight and then pull down on the ones from there up, it'll kind of be like, you know, like a wave effect where it'll lay the metal down tight on the bottom and pull it tighter as it goes up, as opposed to tightening in some kind of a sequence. Now this bolt that I stuck in there has a washer on it. It also has a it's like a washer type head, but it also has a flat lock washer on it just to take up a little bit of space. That's the only reason I put it on there. Darn it. Okay, so that's it. That's together, and I'm going to take a good look at this frame over here before I cut it to decide whether I do want to cut it or not. I really feel like it's a nuisance to have to try and take that whole side frame apart over there. So a little bit of backlash there. I honestly think this thing will be fine. Okay guys, that's it for today so far. Are you still chewing on that bone? Huh? You don't have much left of it. Are you ready to go bye-bye? Do you want to go bye-bye? Okay, we'll go. Have a good one, guys. Check this road out, guys. That's the mud that they're pushing up onto my grass for me. I guess it's supposed to be fertilizer. What a freaking mess. This is what our road looks like for 8 miles. Or 5 miles, sorry. Poor Bullseye will be black. You can see we lost all of our snow except for where the piles were pushed. He doesn't even want to run out on the road, and I don't blame him. What a mess. Yeah, the thing is we're just living here just like any other people live places. The only difference is you absolutely positively have to have 4-wheel drive and 10-ply tires to be able to get back and forth through here. Come on, Bullseye! Where those stakes are is the edge of where my property was, my grass. And you can see what it's looking like here, all the way down there. I don't even want to step out in there. And Sally had to go to a doctor's appointment today, so I can imagine what her car's going to look like when she gets back here. The road has always been, you know, sort of muddy, but not like this. This is unbelievable. This is like, it's like I said before, it's like wet concrete. But this is what it is when you got like 100 trucks a day or better driving over this stuff. What they need to do is put quicklime on here if they want to dry this up, but I don't think they want to spend the money for it. Come on, boy. Old Bullseye's waiting to go into the office there. Look how dirty he is.